If there's one major problem that Microsoft has had recently, it's that they haven't really shown enough gameplay. They haven't done a good enough job of getting the content out there. I've been very vocal about this right from the start. I said, listen, I can understand that they're going to take some time to get some games out. I think that's very understandable, and everybody is pretty forgiving with that kind of stuff because, let's be honest, most of us are playing a lot of multi-platform games or multiplayer games, so it wasn't as dire. But for a hardcore fan like me, it was a little bit distracting, and it was a little bit of a thing where it was a bit of an issue. But now looking back, I can say, those 2 years without any big AAA exclusives from Microsoft was kind of a rough patch, and for me personally, it was just a rough patch in general for a lot of reasons. With that being said, Microsoft has recovered quite well, and now it looks like fans are going to finally get what they've been asking for. I did a video the other day where I was covering the topic that Microsoft and Phil Spencer had commented that they're already getting games ready for the big Xbox Bethesda showcase. Yes, E3 is long gone the way of the dodo. So long, bye-bye, see you later. But that doesn't mean that Microsoft wasn't going to do a show. Obviously, I said this back when E3 was officially canceled. What did it matter? Nobody's going to these events anyway from the looks of it, so why not just do your own thing at around the same time, and people will still watch it, and it's still going to be like an E3 type thing. And that's exactly what Microsoft went ahead and did. Now, last year was a huge improvement on the previous E3s over the last handful of years. I think the main thing is Microsoft actually showed some things. Now, one of the main reasons why they didn't show a lot of gameplay, you're still in the middle of a pandemic. There's a lot of things going on, a lot of moving parts. It would have been hard to kind of tear away developers to do this. Now, from what I can see, it looks like this year is going to be completely different. And now we have a bit of a inside information and a leak that things are actually looking like we might see more gameplay than ever before. I know people were really upset with the lack of actual gameplay. I think we saw Hellblade 2 at the Game Awards, but we really didn't see actual in-game gameplay for anything. And that is a little bit of a disappointment. But still, lots of cool stuff was announced, and I think that should be looked at as a positive. Now, when it comes to this year, a lot of people have asked me, what do I expect? And I'll probably do like a prediction thread and stuff like that. But right now, if you're asking me what games do I expect gameplay for, well, obviously Starfield, obviously Redfall, obviously Forza Motorsport. I think a shoe-in, Contraband. You're going to see Avowed, probably Hellblade 2, and some other gameplay from other games as well, in addition to maybe a few new announcements. Now, it doesn't make sense to do new announcements if you don't have gameplay ready to show and some release dates for some of your previously announced games. So that's a little bit of an interesting kind of topic in and of itself. But according to this, virtually every Xbox studio has submitted content for June's game showcase, which is pretty incredible if you think about it. I find this to be absolutely a very interesting type of situation where, wow, every studio has pretty much, went out there and kind of put something together for this. Last week, Xbox finally got around to announcing its big summer showcase for 2022. Even though they really didn't reveal much of what they're going to show off, aside from the fact that Bethesda is going to have a huge presence once again. However, as expected, the rumors are starting to swirl, and this one is getting us pretty excited. They actually informed us, thanks to Jez Gordon as well, recently did some talks on some things, and they actually discussed upcoming showcase. And here's what they pretty much heard in terms of what they're going to talk about. He says, I did hear, though, through the grapevine not that long ago, almost virtually every studio has submitted something for the show. Almost all of them submitted something for the show, and some studios submitted multiple things. That's where things get cut, though. As we know, Xbox now has a pretty sizable first-party portfolio, so the idea of nearly all of them having things to show is exciting. However, everybody has to understand that this is just a rumor at this point, and aside from Bethesda's involvement, we know very little about the showcase. And still, I think that it's interesting. There could be a little bit of speculation in there as well, but I think that it's fantastic that we hear that, there's going to be some games there. We're going to be seeing something from everybody. And the fact that, Phil Spencer mentions that they're actually got to get some things ready, and demos ready. I think demos is pretty much a very good way to put some of what they're doing. And what I mean by that is, if you're just showing kind of CGI, I'm not sure that that's considered a demo. And I think, that's something that people are looking forward to. You don't just want a situation where, you know, Microsoft are just kind of announcing things and doing CGI trailers again. That's not going to work right now because that's been too much heavily relied on in the past. And as far as I could tell, Microsoft has too much going on right now to really kind of let that be a thing. Now, the other thing that I wanted to kind of talk about was, and I saw this and I thought that this was very much an interesting thing. So, we know that Sony is probably around 18 million PS5 sold, and the latest numbers could possibly put Xbox Series X and S around the 15 million mark or right there around about, give or take a few. And now, according to this, Microsoft's chip shortage advantage is closing the gap between Xbox and PlayStation. Xbox has made a steady comeback thanks to having some availability of consoles and things like that. Both the X and the Series S have been available at a slightly higher rate than the PlayStation 5. Sony's supply constraints have given Microsoft an advantage. It's hard to say for sure why Sony is having a harder time supplying PS5 consoles, but we do know that demand is far greater for the PS5, while at the same time Microsoft's cheaper Series S has been much easier to find throughout last year and into 2022. The Series X shortage is no longer as severe as it was as well. Anecdotally, they've heard from many readers that they've chosen to buy a new Xbox because general fatigue from trying to buy a PS5. The more readily available Series S and the attractiveness of Game Pass. Having two options at a meaningfully different price points is likely helping split demand for Xbox devices. Whereas the PS5's 2-point options are either a base model without a Blu-ray drive or a slightly pricier version that accepts discs. Meanwhile, Sony lowered its PS5 sales estimates for fiscal 2022 and said it would keep making PS4s through the end of the year. Because Xbox devices are easier to find, street prices for scalped units have dropped drastically, whereas PS5 aftermarket prices remain almost double. The longer it continues, the longer Microsoft may be able to gain market share against PlayStation, which still captures close to half of all console consumer spending thanks to more than 112 million PS4 units sold. So the console market is super dynamic and kind of changing around, but one thing that I kind of wanted to point out was this. The Xbox Series X, right, and S saw a huge uptick after last year's E3, right? Last year's E3 was looked at as a huge win, and things really started going in a big way when they did that showcase, and people, obviously, I think Microsoft might have won or came close to winning the NPD that month. But the thing that you have to kind of keep in mind is the fact that out of all these things that are kind of going on and all these things that are happening, Microsoft has a chance to really kind of maybe possibly even catch up in sales with a solid showcase from their Bethesda Xbox showcase. Now, they obviously could sell some Series S's. People might go, well, you know what? Those games look good. I want to play Starfield. Maybe I'll pick up an S, right? And then I'll pick up a PS5 later. And like I've said in other videos, it makes sense to do that because at the end of the day, Microsoft has done a really good job of making these games look attractive through Game Pass. And the Series S isn't actually a bad console at all. It gets a little bit of a bad rap here and there, but overall I think that it is a really good console, and we're starting to see some people show some love for it. I'm glad that it's starting to pick up in sales and things like that. Some people are trying to make it out like nobody wants one. I think that's a fallacy. I think obviously the Xbox Series X would be like the go-to for a hardcore gamer, but I also think that the Xbox Series S is just a fantastic game system and a fantastic value that people can kind of jump in and not really have to worry about, not being able to play things, because we're starting to get to that point where Microsoft and Sony are both kind of in this weird world where gamers are just not going to be able to play on the old consoles. Like Sony making PS4s again and making more PS4s this year, I don't think really does a whole hell of a lot for them. But I also think that we're starting to see some incredible movement from Microsoft themselves. I find it to be incredible with what Microsoft has been able to do, given the fact that all their games are available on PC, and we're also seeing a good mix of first party and third party and things like that. What do you guys think, though? Do you guys think Microsoft is in a much better spot right now than they were? I'd love to hear some of your thoughts and opinions on it. I'm Crap Gamer. This is Crap Gamer Reviews. Thank you so much for watching. Rack 'em up, fact 'em up, Crap Gamer 'em up, Crap Gamer out.